Legit, mounted, and loaded!
What's going on, everybody? Sloth here. Hope you're having an awesome day, and welcome to my guide of our sweet prince Tachanka. Now, just like all my other guides, we're going to take a look at Tachanka's optimum loadout, how to try and use his gadget effectively, the deployable turret, and then finally how you're going to want to try and play Tachanka in a typical round. Tachanka is a 1-speed, 3-armor defensive operator hailing from the Russian Special Forces, the Spetsnaz. Now, the main reason everyone hates on Tachanka is because he practically has a useless gadget, but because of that, people miss out on the fact that he actually has a pretty solid primary weapon. Now, Tachanka has to choose between the SASG-12 shotgun, which does 50 damage, can fire basically as fast as you can pull the trigger, and has a capacity of 10 in the magazine. But this gun is not really much to write home about in terms of shotguns. I'm not much of a shotgun user, but this one in particular isn't great. Can be fun to use, but you're not really gonna, be winning any medals by using it. But where it does shine is with the 9x19 VSN. Now, this submachine gun does 34 damage, has a competitive fire rate of 750 and a respectable capacity of 30 bullets in the magazine. Now, the 9x9 VSN is a pretty solid weapon that fires almost like a laser beam.
Fucking laser sights.
If you put on the right reflex sight with this, the Spetsnaz reflex sights are really clear. They just have a light green marker in the middle that's very easy to use. They don't take up a lot of the screen. And also, if you put a foregrip on this gun and also equip it with a compensator, firing this weapon full auto over long distances is no problem whatsoever, because it's literally a laser beam. It's honestly so good, and I can't really recommend this weapon highly enough. It doesn't necessarily, melt people up close, but because you're able to get so many bullets down range in a short space of time, you should easily be able to nick quick headshots. Plus, also, the way the sight lines up on this gun, I just find like it's like a headshot machine, and it's really easy to rack up a lot of headshots once you get used to using this weapon. In the secondary weapon slot, Tachanka has to choose between the GSH-18 and the PMM. Now, here there's not too much toss-up between them. I personally prefer the GSH-18 because it has more capacity, and that's just a personal preference for me. Then moving on to his actual secondary gadget, he has the choice between the barbed wire and the deployable shield. Both of these are valid options, depends how you want to play him. I tend to go for the deployable shield because I like to mount it in front of my actual turret, so my body is covered as well as my head. Just gives me a little bit more advantage when I am coming up against people that are trying to kill me. But the barbed wire is a valid choice as well, so it's completely up to you which one you choose there. Now, moving on to Tachanka's gadget, the deployable turret. Man, trying to get gameplay for this video was funny. If you pick Tachanka in rank play, some people will literally just shoot you right off the bat just for playing him, which I think is disgusting considering everything Tachanka has done for the Rainbow Six Siege community, just in terms of sheer memes. There are actual YouTube channels dedicated to Tachanka himself, and I have no problem when people play Tachanka. If they're playing him seriously and they're trying their best, there should be no reason why you can't play him. Like I've said, his primary weapon is very good, and his turret can be good in certain situations. Granted, I would probably say it is one of the most useless gadgets on the game, because the way Rainbow Six Siege works, it does reward that quick peeker's advantage style of gameplay, and obviously when you sit there stationary on a turret, you're not that useful. But there are some interesting ways that you can use this gadget to get the most out of it. Now, first off, just a brief little bit about the turret. When you do put the turret up, it basically takes quite a while to deploy, so you never want to be putting it up in a hurry. You always want to try and make sure you have your turret up and ready before your enemies are coming. If you get caught trying to put that turret up when the enemies are coming, you're going to get caught with your pants down, and you're going to end up dying 9 times out of 10. So first things first, make sure when you are planning on placing your turret, you have it down before the enemies arrive. Now, the next thing about the turret, it's very powerful. It will drop most enemies within 2 bullets. I did a test against, a 3-armor operator, a 2-armor operator, and a 1-armor operator, and basically it kills the 3-armor operator in 2 bullets to the body. And then I tested it on the lowest armor operator to the legs, and that also kills them as well. So the turret is a 2-shot anywhere to the body, I believe, and of course 1 to the head. Now, it does kick up quite a lot, but just for the sheer amount of damage that it does, it can be good. If you're able to get people to come into the direction from which your turret is facing, it can be very effective. But the challenge often is getting people to engage you in situations where you're on that turret. And of course, the turret has a shield. I also did a test, and it takes around about 11 bullets to destroy that shield. Now, I know in the gameplay that I'm showing in the background, that seems like a long time, but you've got people that have these guns with these insane rates of fire. That shield gets destroyed very, very quickly, but it will give you that split second, similar to Blackbeard, where you have that advantage over your enemy if you see each other at the same time, and you should be killing people, you know, 9 times out of 10. But the main thing is, you know, your body's also exposed, and half the time you might be in an angle where you can't see the enemy and they can see you, and they're just gonna, you know, rip straight through your body. That's one of the downfalls of Tachanka. So the main thing is, when playing as him, you need to make sure you know where to place the turret, where it's best to do so. Now, you have a range of about 90 degrees with the turret when playing as Tachanka, and I see so many people placing the turret wrong. You don't necessarily want to place the turret just in the direction that you're facing. So say, for instance, you want to face directly ahead of you, and that's the main angle that you want to watch. I recommend placing it 90 degrees, you know, to an angle opposite that, purely because it can rotate that distance. It enables you to cover, you know, more than just that angle, for instance. So you are able to cover usually 2 angles with Tachanka, and a lot of people just place it for the one, and then when they spin it, you know, they're facing nothing valuable. So if you are clever with the way you set up the turret, you can also watch multiple angles and therefore give yourself a better chance of engaging people when actually on the turret. Now, another tip when using the turret is not putting it up during the actual droning phase, because when you put it up on the droning phase, people are obviously going to know exactly where you are, and they're not going to come from that angle. Or if they are going to come from that angle, they're going to come locked and loaded with some frag grenades, and you're going to get blown the hell up.
Frag grenade! Shield us up! Stay with me, bratucha!
We're not out of the woods, bratan.
On your feet!
So do not put it down during that phase. You want to try and wait for that droning phase to finish. Try and kill any drones that you see, and then obviously get that turret up. Now, it is a race against time, so you need it up before they get there, but try and make sure, you know, you're putting it up without getting spotted, because the second that you are compromised, you know, it's time to dig deep and hold down the line on that turret. But that is what Tachanka should be about. He should be able to consistently hold angles. Unfortunately, the way Rainbow Six Siege works, it doesn't necessarily allow him to do that, and I'm not sure what updates and what patches they can do to Tachanka to make him be able to do that better, and that's something that the guys over at Ubisoft are going to have to try and figure out. But another good thing that Tachanka is actually good at is obviously destruction. Because his turret is so powerful, it destroys, you know, destroyable walls very, very quickly. So you are able to open up big objective spaces very easily, and that's a good way to be creative with Tachanka. If you can shoot through multiple walls so people can't necessarily see, you know, what's through them holes, but you know what you're looking at, you might be able to cover angles that are quite far away whilst not being able to be seen by the enemy and take them out. But like I said, that's quite a complex thing to do, and you know, it's not very reliable. Like I said, Tachanka's very situational. Now, another thing you can do if you just want to play Tachanka and you know that he's not the best and you don't really want to use his turret, you can just purely use it as a decoy. You know, if you put that Tachanka turret up in line sight of a window that you know enemies are going to be coming from, the second that they break open that window, their eyes are going to be drawn to that big thing, you know, that big hunk of metal in the middle of the room, and they're going to think, what the hell is that? While they're doing that, you might be able to take their head off. You know, it's not necessarily a great tactic, but it's better than, you know, not putting it down whatsoever. At least if you put it down, it's going to give your enemies, you know, something to think about. Now, in terms of the best places to place the turret, you know, there's never a 100% answer to this. I've seen some people be very successful using Tachanka for spawn kills because people don't expect it, you know, the element of surprise. But I generally think it is best to try and get it somewhere near the objective or in the objective room and basically anchor when playing as Tachanka. Because he has got that 3 armor, I definitely don't recommend roaming with him because he's so loud. People are going to hear you coming off a mile away. But he is relatively good for spawn peaks because the VSN is so accurate. You know, it is laser beam like. You can easily get spawn kills and then obviously run back to your defensive base. But I recommend setting up the turret in the defensive base, trying to cover as many angles as possible with it, and then placing that deployable shield in front of you to try and cover the mid half of your torso. That's pretty much the best way I see the turret being used. And so, you know, and if you can get people to challenge you from them angles, you know, you are going to be able to take them out very easily. But never be afraid to leave the turret as Tachanka. If you're staying on that turret when people are throwing grenades at you and, you know, blasting you up and people know where you are, you're going to get destroyed. So make sure when you kind of compromise and kind of tell that it's time to leave the turret, don't just stay on it for no reason. Make sure you are leaving to try and benefit the team as best as possible. Now, how I'd recommend playing Tachanka in a typical round, it is up to you. The Lord himself has his ways. I'd recommend maybe going for a spawn peek because the VSN is so good. If you're not into spawn peeking, that's fine. Just hunker down in the room. Make sure you do play Tachanka anchoring because he isn't great at roaming. Try and get your turret put up in a way that's going to benefit the team. Try and cover more than just one angle in the objective room. Maybe try and break up some of the destructible surfaces so you can see interesting angles when playing as him, and make sure when it's time to leave the turret, you make sure that you leave the turret. But that's pretty much from me, guys. I really like playing as Tachanka. I got some really good clips. Like I said, the 9x9 VSN is a very, very competent weapon. I know the turret's not great, but it still can be useful in certain situations. So don't be a douchebag. You know, if you see people picking Tachanka in rank play, don't just immediately try and kill him off spawn. Tachanka can be a viable pick, so don't hate on him for no reason. But this has been my guide on Tachanka. I hope that some of you have found it useful in some way. If you do like these guides that I'm doing, please let me know in the comments down below what you do like about them and what you would like me to change about them. But that's pretty it from me, guys. I hope you have a great day, and without further ado, see you later.